Hello and welcome to this first episode of Leading Adam. I'm Erika Crabtree, along with our host, Adam Binkerd. You're going to learn a little bit more about us, why we're even doing this podcast, and why I'll be asking my husband to do ballet with me on Saturday morning.
The Leading Adam podcast is hosted by me, Adam Binkerd. I've spent the last 10 years researching how a healthy human experience is the key to innovation in student retention and education. And now I'm taking to the mic to share what I've learned. Hear how I've defied the odds and transformed from a landscaper to a national expert in student success in less than 10 years. Not an educator? That's okay. Stay tuned for entertaining stories and practical takeaways about leading self, leading leaders, and leading culture. The Leading Adam podcast is co-hosted by Erika Crabtree, produced by Chris Spangle, and sponsored by 240 Solutions. Connect with us at 240solutions.com. And I hope you'll stay tuned because together we can change the world.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Erika. What are we doing?
We're starting a podcast today.
We are.
We
We did that.
We did. We're doing it right now.
We're doing it.
There's a podcast going on.
Like it or not, it's happening.
Yeah.
Right now.
That's exciting. You've been on podcasts before. This is my first experience on a podcast.
Is it really?
It is. I listened to a ton of them, but this is my first time ever being on one. So,
well, I can tell you from being a guest to being a host, totally different. Mm-hmm. A lot more prep went into today. And, before I just show up, they got all the plan and I just answer questions.
Show up into your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you thinking so far?
Well, we both have our coffee. Are you enjoying your coffee?
Always. I love coffee.
Same. Black?
Only. I like to say I like my coffee like I like my water, available everywhere. The fancier it gets, the better chance when you order it, you're not going to like it. If you like it black, it doesn't matter. Gas station,
right?
Barista, it doesn't make a difference.
It's very low maintenance. I just need the coffee. Although I do have a rule that if I drink coffee in the afternoon, then it needs to be fancy coffee with maybe some oat milk.
Okay.
It's a treat, right? But my first thing in the morning coffee is just black.
I can get down with that. I don't eat a lot of sugar. Mm-hmm. So in the afternoon, a nice good warm cup of coffee.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's iced coffee, but with only heavy cream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the sugary stuff. But yeah, any day that starts with coffee, I'm good.
It's a good day. That's right. Day. And it's really, for the betterment of everybody around us too, right?
Well, maybe. I don't have that issue, but
maybe my kids, right? Right. Well, awesome. Well, I'm so excited to get this thing kicked off today. And why are we doing a podcast?
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And I think, we've been on this journey for years now. Mm-hmm. And I think the podcast is a perfect platform to share the message. I think in part, it's getting the message out there and helping people understand that there is a universal knowledge that we can kind of lead from, mm-hmm. Whether that's leading an organization or leading a team or just leading our family. Like there's this central component, and that's the message. So, having a podcast and be able to do this instead of a monologue, right? Mm-hmm. People don't want to hear that anymore. Yeah. They're over it. But to be able to dialogue about what is the message mm-hmm. and why does it matter, I think that's the podcast, and you love podcasts.
I do. I listen to them. They've become my coworkers because I work from home, and it gives me regular voices that I hear every single day. I listen to a lot of the same ones consistently. So it's a great way to warm up my brain in the morning. And although they don't hear me respond to them, I definitely do, even if it's just in my office or my living room. But yeah, I love podcasts. And I think it's important for everybody to know. We didn't just wake up yesterday and decide to start a podcast. This really has, like you mentioned, it's been a decade more in the making. Mm-hmm. And I hope that we can get in a little bit of that journey and what that looks like for you and for really both of us.
I think it's more than just that. Like we didn't wake up yesterday and let's do a podcast. Yeah. I think so many people do that. But we didn't do that. In fact, it took you and a few others at least a year to convince me to do a podcast, mostly because it feels very self-centered. And I don't like that. Like, I don't want to be the center of this. And it's most of what we've done in the last 4 years, consulting and working with educators, is helping them understand that it's not about you. So to take this step kind of felt backwards a little bit. So it took some convincing, but here we are.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking this morning on my drive in, no matter what happens today, we're going to look back on this and be embarrassed. Right?
100%. Right.
Yeah, because we're learning. We don't know what we're doing.
Exactly.
We know the message we want to share, but podcasting is new to us. So.
Yeah. But I love that space to where you don't know what you're doing and you're just figuring it out. Sometimes there was a period of time where I thought, I wish I had a hobby that I just really invested all my time and effort into. I tend to bounce around a little bit more, but I think that my hobby is just figuring stuff out and problem solving. So I like to, with a DIY home project or, some kind of craft project, part of the fun of it is just figuring it out. So here we are, we're figuring it out, and it's going to be fun.
I mean, we're at the end of an age of reality TV, DIY, and sadly, I still think education's catching up. Yeah. Right? The authenticity of what we're going to do in this, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to say stuff we wish we could pull back.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Right.
But that authenticity is what the student of today and the listener of today is interested in. And I think that's the thing that gives me a little bit of peace and solace in this is, if there's anything I know how to do on this planet, it's be me. Whether people like it or not, I know how to do that. And so, again, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And
so we know, so with this, like you've mentioned here, really our listeners are educators. We're focused on working with educators and in that particular industry. And for both of us, we've talked about this a little bit before, education is just so important to both of us. And I'm curious to hear from you why, the things, your philosophy, what 240 Solutions does, that message that you talk about that you want to get out is really could be applied towards any industry within any organization.
Sure. So
why for both of us, why do we keep coming back to education? Why do we love that so much? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question for me because I think statistically I shouldn't want anything to do with education. Right. And beating the odds and overcoming so many things from just that lens alone. You think it would be something I would run from and never want to be anywhere near. But the truth is, I think I'm passionate about seeing the world change and maybe a little bit idealistic. And I think I'm okay with that. I've been called a starry-eyed dreamer, and I'm cool with that because if we stop hope, if we stop believing that it can change, then what are we doing? And so for me, I think the connection and the passion for education is that it genuinely is the only way to transformation. As an individual, as a society, education plays such an enormous role. And my passion is derived from the idea that somewhere along the line, we lost that. And we made education about enrollment and big campuses and prestige. And it's not about learning, but education, when defined through the lens of learning, it is the key to change the world. Yeah. And I think that's what it is for me. There's probably so many other reasons, but, we met in education 8 years ago now. I'll never forget that first meeting.
That seems like 2 weeks ago.
It does, doesn't it? Thank you for saying that. You could have said it felt like 20.
Right. It really doesn't seem like that long ago, but 8 years ago it was.
But you were working in a different role. We were both in education. I was on the student success support side. You were on the other end of that.
In admissions.
So for you, why education for you? Because I think we're equally passionate about this.
100%. Yeah, I think for me, when I look back on my life and even my family, I'm a second generation college graduate. My parents were first generation college graduates. Prior to that, I have one grandparent who graduated high school.
Wow.
My grandmother grew up in the country in a, very small house with lots of siblings, things like that. So for me, that transformation of education changed the trajectory of our family. And I just have seen that over and over with the students that I get to work with. And as I worked in higher education, was able to just realize and really connected with those students who came from backgrounds who, maybe didn't have that opportunity or, made poor decisions or different decisions when they were younger and didn't really know how to get into education.
Yeah.
And then being able to open that door for them and show them the way to change their life and their family. I think about those students still to this day, off and on. And so I just really,
I love that what
behind it.
motivates you is their opportunity. I think that's one of the things where you and I connect when it comes to education is you being second generation haven't forsaken the sacrifice the generation before you made.
Right.
And you recognize the opportunity you have and you're coaching people through that hole, right, in a sense. I'm on the other side for the student support, student success, student retention, and I'm on that side of it rooting for them as a first gen, seeing myself in them.
Yeah.
You're seeing your opportunity in them. I'm seeing myself in them. And I think that's a focus that's not about the job, the benefits.
Right.
I mean, education as an industry can have some decent benefits, but it isn't about that.
No.
Right.
I know I talk with so many students all the time who don't even know how to apply. I didn't know how to take that first step.
That was me.
Yeah. And so having someone, I've been through that. Those of us who work in the industry have been through that. So just showing someone, here's that door. Here's how you turn the handle to open the door. Here's the key that you need. And being able to just share resources. And that's really all it is, just sharing that knowledge and sharing that those resources and helping to educate someone else on how to take that step and how to walk through that door is huge.
It makes me think, Erika, too, back to kind of why the podcast, what is the message, where are we going with this? And I think so much of it is targeted to men and women working in education, whether they're instructors, administrators, support staff, or advisors or mentors, whatever the case may be. There's dozens of men and women across the country who possess the same heart, the same passion to see students succeed, but aren't heard.
Yeah.
They're not, their voice doesn't make it to the decision makers or whatever the case. And having facilitated hundreds of workshops with thousands of employees in higher education, I can attest firsthand that passion is alive and well for the learner, for the transformation of the learner. But unfortunately, it gets lost in maybe a hotbed of strategic plans and better curriculum and high profile professors. It kind of gets lost in that, and in some way we lose the value of why we do this. Why are we in this for the student? And part of the message is because it's very much about humanity. The philosophy that we lead for, the philosophy that we consult from is all about humanity. And it has to begin with the humanity of the employee.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't feel like your work matters, if you don't feel like you belong in the seat that you're sitting, how can you invite a student into that journey? Right? You can follow a script. I assume from the admissions side, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you balance that? I mean, you have your heart, and then you have some writer somewhere said this will sell.
Yeah.
How do you balance selling with your passion?
Right. And education is highly regulated, so there's compliance type things to consider as well. Yeah, and what one of the things that I heard you say a lot is, you can't give that which you don't possess.
Yeah.
I'm going to butcher it. It's fine.
Can't give it if you don't have it. Let's make it real simple.
If you don't have it. Yeah. There you go. And that's so true. And one of the things I loved about the time that we did when we first started working together is you find that undercurrent of people. You find those renegades within the organization, or just those people who believe that as well, who recognize that, hey, we're really focused maybe on the wrong things, or, let's get back to that, to the human element, and coming together and finding those people. You can make a difference. And like-minded individuals, I mean, it's a really powerful thing. And
my hope is through this process, our conversations as we journey down this path for leading self, leading leaders, leading culture and education. My hope is that leaders in education will have practical takeaways, things that I can pick up and go, I can apply that today to improve my team's sense of belonging, for example. But equally, I hope that there are educators, advisors, admissions reps that listen in and go, they get me, right? I connect with what they're saying because they're bringing back a message that needs to be heard, So I'm curious a little bit. Let's talk about just your journey. We need to share a little bit from ourselves, as we're going to get into so much more content over the coming episodes. But what is your journey from, who was Erika to now you're in some ways an influencer in education, and now we're doing this, speaking very confidently, like we have the answer, because I do believe we have an answer.
Yeah, great question. So my journey, I had a really happy childhood. I think I grew up like a typical Indiana suburban girl, grew up with friends, good family, well supported, went through high school, went to college after that at Indiana University, had the traditional on-campus undergraduate type experience. But I think, having first-generation college parents, I remember even way back then being on campus and being around people who I felt like seemed like they knew so much more about being a college student than I did. And maybe, from my more of a working class background from my family, you went to college so you could get a job. It wasn't having this worldly experience. And I got a lot of that going to a school as big as IU and all of those things, and being exposed to so many different things. But the idea there were people around me doing, internships and traveling abroad, none of those things. I wasn't even aware of those things, that they existed until I got there. So being able to learn about those things. And now I'm able to pass that kind of information on to my daughters, who are teenagers or about ready to be, one of my youngest, and being able to just help guide them and connect them again, with those resources and that knowledge of what that potential could be about, and those opportunities that could be out there for them, and being able to follow, their passion and what they want to do with their life. So,
I wonder, sometimes I think about, you said you go to college to get a job. And I think so many times we miss it because that's the goal, is to get a job.
Yeah.
And we miss a little bit of the process. So I didn't go to college to get a job. I had a job. I went as an adult. And so I didn't go till 10 years after high school. And we'll get into a lot of that, I think, over the coming episodes as to why. But when I think about that, I was genuinely in to grow, to learn. It was always about, how can I become what I was intended to be, instead of in pursuit of a job. But I think the same is true for me, being first generation and going through the struggles that I went through, to be able to look at the generation below me, my kids, and to say, here's what you can expect. Mm-hmm. And to see them have the confidence to say, what about this, Dad?
Oh, yeah.
And to be able to speak to it. I didn't have the traditional experience that you had. Your mind opens up to things like study abroad and all this.
Yeah.
And here I am. My daughter's graduated now with her undergrad, and she concluded her bachelor's program with study abroad to Japan. And one of the things that I had learned across my experience, my journey as a whole, is don't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
I mean, she's never been she's been out of the country, but had never been, in this case, without a parent. She's going with a group. She's going to Japan, had an incredible time. And I told her before she left, I said, listen, if you're questioning, should I try this? Should I do that? Just remember this statement. It'll either be a wild adventure or a hell of a story. Either way, you win.
Right.
And I think there's a part of this generational bit where you can hand down some stuff that mitigates the fear that a student, that the generation below you might be experiencing. And I felt very privileged to be able to share that. Wisdom, right, with my daughter. She come back and she said, I had the time of my life. Well, that's incredible. That makes me exceptionally proud.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna talk about how the human experience is so critical to student outcomes, and it kind of goes back to my quote that you butchered. I'm just saying, you butchered my quote. It
might happen again, so.
The actual quote, folks, is you cannot offer that which you first don't possess.
There it is.
Otherwise known as, if you don't have it, you can't give it. But we're gonna really lean into that a lot over these episodes coming, because the reality is you cannot pour from an empty cup. And we want our students to be successful. We want our students to have confidence. We want our students to challenge social norms. We want them to challenge the status quo. But then as leaders, we look at our employees and ask them to fall in line. Right? Because there's a policy, there's a procedure, there's an expectation. We have to hit A, B, and C. But I'm taking away from you the very thing I want you to pour into the student. And that's why the human experience in the workplace matters. And as 10 years digging into this, we can confidently, intelligently, and articulately explain what is the human experience at work. What's it comprised of? And that's really where we want to go and unpacking that. And so looking forward, that's where I'm excited to get there. I don't want to rush there, but you know how passionate I am about this, that when we understand that human experience, what it opens up to us and the success that can follow that. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so you asked me about my background. Oh, and one thing I wanted to add. So I did do my MBA as an online student, as an adult. I completed that in 2019.
I remember that, by the way.
You do?
I do.
Nice.
I do. You started after we had met.
Nice. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mainly not because I felt like I needed an MBA. It was mainly to, I think, prove to myself that I could even do it as an adult. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was younger. So that was sort of my journey with that. So I have that online student experience with little kids going to school. You mentioned that you statistically should not even be here in this situation. So tell me a little bit about that, because you need to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So the short story is this. I graduated high school, rural country school in north central Indiana, with a 2.6 grade point average, which you might be thinking, as a listener, you might be thinking, that's not bad. Like, that's a low B. You're good. The reality is, though, my entire senior year was comprised of classes like small animal care, greenhouse, weightlifting, study hall, times 2.
I needed your counselor.
Yeah, honestly, I think at some point they were like, "This kid ain't gonna make it. Let's just get him through." I love my teachers. It's not a slight to them, but I struggled in school. Is the story. And legitimately, I had to work with the janitorial staff the last week for them to let me graduate.
Oh my goodness.
That's how close it was. Like, it was close. I missed more than 17 days my senior year. I hated school, and there was a lot of reasons. And I think we'll explore those as parts of stories as we, unfold this season. But, I was battling through trauma, and I was battling through a learning disability that I didn't even know I had. And so that's kind of why statistically I shouldn't certainly have graduated from college of any kind. And there is no script on this planet that makes it make sense that I was recognized as an expert in student success nationally. That does not make sense. But that is my story, and so I'm sitting here today, holding a business degree, a counseling degree, 2 master's degrees in leadership, and my PhD coursework complete because I got a vision for my life. And I started to believe differently than the script that had been kind of laid out for me. And credit to an incredible community around me. But that's what I mean. Statistically, shouldn't be here. I am an anomaly, and I'm grateful to have the story that I have. I'm more grateful that it allows me to connect to both the student and the educator, and to be able to speak to what you are capable of when you get a vision for something different, whether that's for yourself or for an industry like education. It can change. So yeah, that's probably enough, right? I got a lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot there. And you did, your associate's degree all the way through your PhD coursework. How long were you in school?
14 years.
It's a long time.
Well, that doesn't count high school.
Right. So after high school,
I've been in school. I will have to live to the age of 52 before I have been out of school longer than I've been in it.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm not 52 yet. So yeah, I did it. I was in for a while, and that's kind of part of it too, right? You take a kid who hated school. I barely went my senior year.
Right.
And then something clicks and I go, I'm worth more than this. And then I go 14 years consecutive while working a full-time job and being a husband and being a father and doing prison ministry and homeless shelter ministry.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think sometimes we don't expect enough of people. But that's because we're trying to put something on them.
Right.
We're trying to put your goal, your vision on them. Well, what changes if we see the human and ask them, where do you want to be? How do you see yourself? And then they grab it and they just run. Oh, at that point, you just got to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. That's all I needed first to get out my own way. And then after I got that, I just need people to be a support, to cheer me on, because I was going to do the work.
Yes. And you taking your own steps forward.
Right.
And following that vision that you had. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So this is episode 1. Do you have any idea how we wrap these things up?
I have no idea, but I thought we went really deep pretty quickly. So I want to do something a little bit fun.
Okay.
And
okay, let's do that.
I'm curious.
We'll end on fun.
I'm curious. I've heard this before, so I'm borrowing it from somebody, but I'm gonna use it and tweak it and make it my own here for a second. But I'm just curious, Adam Binkerd, what brings you joy when you think about little things that bring you joy each day? I love, just thinking about things that make us feel human and make us feel like ourselves and make us feel authentic.
Yeah.
And what are maybe top 3 things?
Okay. I'll participate in this.
Okay.
As long as you do the same. Of course, coffee.
Given.
I mean, coffee, is there anything better than coffee at dawn?
No. Sometimes I go to bed at night thinking about how excited I am for my coffee in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
coffee
true.
at dawn. So my 3 things: coffee at dawn, an open fire, and oddly, processing and preparing firewood.
That's interesting.
I love it.
Like you do the chopping?
Oh, yeah.
What is processing?
It's so manly.
Yeah. Just get the axe.
Yeah, we do.
Beard and sweat.
I've got the axe. I've got a splitting stump and all this stuff, and we got hordes of firewood ready to be processed. And I want to act like a big guy, right? I've got a big chainsaw and all this. The reality of it is, Erika, is I split by hand for like 5 minutes, and then I'm breathing so hard that I can barely start the splitter. Where my wife is waiting to join me.
She's like shaking her head in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a power splitter, and my wife and I love to do that together. So the things that bring me joy, definitely processing firewood, coffee, and an open fire. I love it. Those things are just like the center core of peace for me. So what about you?
Nice.
3 things.
Okay. So my first thing also is coffee. I do look forward to my coffee in the morning. And during the pandemic, I started this thing where I find great joy in drinking coffee, especially out of a fun coffee mug. So over time, I've sort of acquired a collection of my favorite coffee mugs. I love art and the Newfield, the art museum. So I have a collection of mugs with artwork on them. So that's really special.
Are we going to see some of those mugs?
You probably will.
Is this yours?
This is not mine. It's a borrowed mug, but I did like the colors and sort of the spatter on it.
Okay, so we're going to see some of those mugs.
We will.
That's exciting.
I love local coffee shops. I have several mugs from local coffee shops. So that's become a favorite.
Okay.
I love being outdoors in nature. And if I can force myself, sometimes it's hard. I'm tired during the day at the end of a long day, but being able to be outside and in trees and nature. We just went to Turkey Run State Park and
beautiful.
Being in the canyons, and especially if there's water. I love kayaking, water.
Yep.
But even just walking outside my house and walking through a park, it just makes my day.
Yeah, it's so serene.
It is. It is. And then my third thing is connected with that, being in connection with people. I have never been a loner type. I can be very introverted, but I just want to be around people. And I don't care if we're just sitting and reading books or not talking. I just want to know that someone else is there.
It's going to be tough working from home.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. That's why I have my podcast people that don't know that I'm talking with them.
Oh, your friends? Oh, your friends?
My podcast friends that don't know I exist. But yeah, I have that. But I get to, talk with my family around at home when they're around, or, walking through the park and getting to see people from the community. I definitely say hi to people as they walk by. But yeah, I like to be in the company of people. And Saturday morning, about a year ago, actually almost exactly a year, last July, I started an adult ballet class with a close friend of mine. So
does Jim do this with you?
He does not.
Oh, man, that's a miss.
I haven't convinced him to take it that far yet, that next step. But I do this adult ballet class. But the thing of it, not only does it give me exercise, which is always good, I go with a friend. And we've learned from each other, we've had a conversation that a key moment in this is every Friday night, she will text me and say, "Are you going tomorrow?" And by her texting me, I don't want to bail. So I tell her yes. But my yes is just as important to her because if I say no, she won't go.
Yeah. Right.
So it's I get to see her every Saturday morning. We get to do this thing that makes us feel good. And that's
community.
Just a community.
Well, I know we got to be done, but so my daughter-in-law danced from little to an adult, and ballet was her primary.
Oh.
And so when her and my son were getting really serious, and she'd come over, and I asked her to teach me to pirouette.
I hope there's videos
I'm
of this somewhere.
6'2", 250 pounds.
Yeah.
We'll just let you imagine what that looked like. There's not nearly enough room in this space for me to demonstrate.
Right.
But yeah, so I've tried my hand at ballet. I
Nice.
challenge Jim.
Nice.
Get involved, Jim.
Maybe you
Do
guys
some
should
ballet.
come to the class. Yeah. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Well, it's been good. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Same.
And I can't wait till next.
Absolutely.
Cheers.